See, he said there's this controversy of the day. There's starting to be this rising social conscience that slavery was wrong. And so because of that, he says, I'm commenting, and we're still as a society figuring that out. It's easy for us to look back 2,000 years and say they should have figured it out, but they hadn't. Roman culture hadn't. And so he says, we're still figuring out what this looks like. So I'm going to ask you to restore him, treat him like a brother, not like a slave. But at the other side, I don't know what that looks like, but I do know this. Whatever I'm asking, I expect the church to respond in an even greater way. See, he sends out words like this. Back in verse 17, these are all commands to Philemon. Receive him. Verse 18, charge that to my account. Verse 20, refresh my heart. Verse 21, do even more than. Verse 22, prepare that guest room for me. He says there's a bunch of things that I want to see you do. But at the end of the day, whatever I ask of you, I believe that you, and by proxy the church, is going to do even more than I ask. Why? Because through the history, the church, and I want us to understand this, the church, capital C, not little c. Because every one of us that's here could write a story. Most of us could write a book about individual instances in church where we've been wronged and it hurt. I never want to belittle that. Every one of us has stories. I have stories. I get that. And there's times that the lowercase c church is wrong. And there's times that capital C church, it takes a while for them to get the picture of what's supposed to be right. But once the church at large gets it, they gravitate towards, man, we want to make sure that we get this right. We want to make sure that we figure out societal ills and deal with those things in a relevant manner. And that's why, even though the church struggled with this topic, and the church, little case c, lowercase c, sometimes still struggles with this topic, large case c, the church throughout history has been the one saying we need to lead revolutionary change in our culture. It's why William Wilberforce had one of the most compelling statements, one of the most popular statements on what it means to fight against slavery. And in his world, he says this: you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you didn't know. When he championed, we have to free slaves, we have to stop this. He says you can choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you didn't know what was taking place. It's why today it's often Christians leading the charge against human trafficking, some of which we know came right out of our church, said, man, we want to lead the charge to make sure the world knows that this isn't okay. Because Paul says, I believe the church, when the church becomes aware of the issue, and the church has time to collect itself, it says we have to rise up. We have to figure this thing out and start to affect society around us. And so Paul writes and says, I expect the church to do even more than I've asked. And that was about the controversial issue of his day. It's easy for us to look back and have 2,000 years of context and say, okay, but that's not me. That's not our controversy. But what about when we have controversies today? And I'm not looking to get into a political discussion that's for life and for Facebook and all that. But I am asking us to do this. When it comes to those controversial topics, ask ourselves this question. Not what feels good to me. Not what can I get away with. But what does my faith dictate that I do?